All right, so you're saying coaches, GMs, the belief system, bro.
Yeah, it's all about this belief system and getting not just the organization to buy in, but the city. I mean, the fans. And that's what it all comes down to. And I keep on thinking about over and over again about this team and how Sam Presti, how Coach D, and how everybody has built this belief system inside the players. And then what's so exciting for me is all these people that are starting to believe in the team right now. You know, like we're seeing this massive amount of people that are coming out of the woodworks that are like, hey, I really don't know this team very well, and I'm watching and trying to catch up about this team. And I love that, man. I love the fact that we're having this brand new fandom of other Oklahoma City Thunder fans that are coming and saying, we want to know more about this team, because it's the belief in the organization.
So many national media sources.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, Sam Presti believes, and he's taught how, you know, the front office how to believe, and then he's taught the front office has in turn taught the coaching staff and the people that are around the players and training the players, and then those guys having this upbeat mentality and how they're going to train and work with the players have taught the players on how to have this professional habit of excited about we're different, we're not going to be the normal young team. And that has turned into now this massive amount of fans that are coming out of the woodworks that are like, we believe this team can not only win tonight, but we think this team can go way further than anything else we've thought in the past.
Yeah, we don't want to get too carried away.
But not necessarily this year.
But my kids were even asking me about it, like, what happens if they win? I'm like, I'm not thinking about what happens if they win. But you're right, dude. You're right. Down the line in the future, and this just like, just to reiterate what you're saying, is like it starts with the ownership believing in the president of basketball operations and general manager Sam Presti, and then him believing in the staff. And you said it last episode, but like his investment in the staff, right? Like not just poaching people. Like sometimes you'll see a coach be brought in to, you know, solve a problem.
But let's go back. One coach has been brought in to solve a problem. The rest of them have been developed inside of the coaching system in Oklahoma City. It wasn't about just the players and bringing them in as young players and developing the players. It was about bringing the coaches at a young age and developing the coaches to take over. Like that was what's so next level to me. I mean, we can all talk about this or that, but the fact is when Sam Presti went out there and he got these guys, the coaches, and whether it was going to Alabama or Rutgers or, you know, wherever, Florida. I mean, all the assistant coaches, that some of them played for us. Cameron Woods, I think, played for us for a little while. But the point is that you have these guys that have come from all over, and Sam Presti has essentially targeted them and saying, I want you guys to help with my organization in the future. And these guys were all in their 20s when this happened. It wasn't like these guys were like, you know, mid-30s and stuff like that. No, he got them young so he could help develop them into the men that he wanted to lead his team.
So I kind of have an answer I'm thinking of, but I'll let you go first. What do you think it is that Sam Presti is looking for in these young coaches that he says, I think that this guy can develop into being, you know, a top assistant or top head coach in the league?
Leadership.
You know what I was thinking, dude, is the ability to communicate with young people eye to eye, face to face, and them listen, right? Because then a coach can go and learn a complicated subject and break it down. I think we were talking before we got on, and sometimes you said that sometimes you feel like a little silly about your analogies, and like, yeah, sometimes they're very sexual and they are dirty, but a lot of times just being able to like explain something that's complicated to somebody in a non-complicated way and say like, break it down into sections and say like, this is how you improve the skills. Like, we don't like to talk about playing too much, but like we like to talk a little bit more about coaching. But if you think back to when you were playing and you had a coach that broke down the post position for you and said like, this is how you read the defender. If they're pushing on this shoulder, if they're this shoulder, if they're low, if they're high, here's how you get them off balance. Here's how you use a shot fake. Like they break it down into like really micro steps. And then they say from there, you can build out and you end up with very complicated moves. And that's what we see a lot with like the Thunder. They're always taking their stars and they're keeping them progressing with these, simple drills that move them in the right direction where players can feel like if they trust their work, they're going to make progress. So I see a lot of similarities with like Sam Presti being like, you're someone who I can work with because the players respect you. And if they respect you, then there's no limit to how far we can take this.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily about it's about the communication. It's not necessarily about the skill level. You know, like as a coach, you could be what I would call a B grade coach, but you can pull the best out of every single one of those players, even though you're what I would consider a B grade coach. How? Well, it's because you have a way to communicate. You have a way to break it down. To me, I look back at all the coaches I ever had. There was two coaches that really stood out to me. I still don't remember his name, but he's the guy. He was the rebound coach for Charles Barkley's college team, and he helped me how to rebound. The second guy was Andrew Havens. He taught me how to have moves, especially in the post. He broke it down like you said. It was simple steps. You feel movement here. You feel pressure here. You do this. You do this. You do this, and it was all regimented, right? It worked. Okay. And then you say, oh, how can you do that move? You know, and it's like, wow, he has like 45 moves. And it's because you feel where the pressure's at and you can utilize that pressure against them. And to me, it's exactly what Coach is doing, and Coach Bliss and Coach Cameron Woods. And I mean, the list can go down and down and down of all these guys that are in there helping these guys out. And it's like, you can see it in practice. You know, there's 5 or 6 coaches that are in a group of 5 players. You know, each one of them have this individual staff almost of saying, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this. It's a way of teaching. It's a way of communicating. I love it, man. And when you have a confidence with these players, you have a confidence with the GM, it shows to the fans. You know, and that's why we're just seeing all these people that are coming back. And it's like, yeah, we want to watch the Thunder again. We want to see what's going to happen here, because let's be real. Like, when we're talking about it and you have to explain some of these players. I mean, if Vince Carter is saying that he has to explain some of these players to people that have been watching the NBA for the last, 20 years, he said, if he has to explain them, like who this player is, where he came from, that means that a lot of people don't understand these players. You know, so when we do an episode about Dort, or we do an episode about JW and JWill, like, these are because we want other people to realize who we have and what we're special about these guys. Because a lot of guys just get stuck in the superstars. And yes, the superstars, are the team of sorts, right? You can build a team around superstars any day you want, but it's the rest of the guys that create the body, of a snake. You got the head, right, with Coach D, and then you got your midriff, you might want to say, with your superstar, and then you got your ass end that create the rest of the team, right? And I say the ass end with all due respect, because everybody knows that it's the dirty work from the rest of the team that makes the team. And you can't have players like Kendrick Williams and Dort and, the list goes on, JWill, without saying, hey guys, if you want playing time, you got to give your all. Like, if you come out of the game and you still have 20% left in your tank, you failed. That's what they're teaching these guys. It's powerful, man. It's nothing like we've ever seen in coaching staff and in GMs and anything else like that. This is so next level. They're preparing these players for the future.
If you look over at the Suns coaching staff, like Monty Williams, former assistant coach, they've got 2 other former assistant coaches there. We see former assistant coaches all over the league with the Thunder, and most of the time they're still relatively young compared to the other assistants around them. So we can anticipate that the assistants on our coaching staff right now are going to actually end up as head coaches in the rest of the league. And this is, or at least top assistants on other teams' benches and stuff. And it's because, back to what you said, just this investment that we have in not just athletes, but also with the staff and making sure they're progressing. And it was like, when it was time to shift to the younger team, it was time to shift to new voices in the locker room. And that's what Sam Presti did. And we believed that it was the right decision, but it was hard to see what he saw. But now I'm looking at it, I'm like, why did he see that? And I think it kind of just goes back to your little snake analogy again. Like that's a way to break it down and make it easy for people to understand and make it digestible for people who this is a new concept to them. And so many elements of basketball, especially when you're dealing with advanced defenses, is you say, oh, here comes the double. How do you play out of this situation? How do you play at this situation? Then you break down that skill set that they're going to need, and you just keep repeating it, and you create different obstacle courses for the players to go through. And that's why you see Ousmane Dieng make such a huge step in 1 year, and it's because he's working the program. Well, who's running that program?
Well, and again, Ousmane Dieng is such a perfect example. I'm so glad you brought him up because we haven't talked about him a lot due to injury and him playing a lot in the G League this year. But Ousmane Dieng is a perfect example. Sam Presti saw, first of all, a protection in the aspect of he traded to get that New York Knicks pick, right, Mark? And it's a known fact. He traded for that New York Knicks pick for one reason. That one reason was to protect his J-Dub pick because Knicks were trading out of that pick, and he was afraid a team was going to jump them and get J-Dub. That is why he picked Ousmane Dieng ahead of J-Dub, so that if the Knicks trade fell apart, the Knicks were stuck with Ousmane Dieng, not J-Dub. All right? Why is that important? Well, it's because Sam Presti, look, he could have picked up Kessler. I guarantee Kessler was on his radar. I guarantee that there's some of these other guys that were on his radar that were in this draft. But why did he pick Ousmane Dieng? He saw the potential in Ousmane Dieng was far greater than anybody else left in the draft. What did Ousmane Dieng need, though? The one thing that Sam Presti was willing to give him. Time. We want to say Ousmane Dieng has the skill not to be in the NBA. You're right. He has the skill not to be in the NBA, but that's why it's so important that he played majority of the games in G League this year. I'm telling you guys, him playing in G League was the best thing for him. Hones in his craft, makes him a year older. Now he's coming back at, 19 years old this next year? Still one of the youngest players in the NBA, and he's putting himself up in a really good position to be a standout player next year.
Yeah. And, one of the guys that have really benefited from the G League system and now was able to go out and play in that elimination game and put up a huge stat line was JWill. 8-8-8 for JWill. That stat line reminds a lot of people of somebody. Bro, what do you think? Is that a Draymond Green stat line?
I mean, here's the thing. If Draymond Green had manners and Draymond Green knew how to play the game in a way that he wasn't trying to hurt somebody, then yeah, I would say this is comparable. But the reality is that what JWill does is much more beautiful and much more precise and much more toned in than Draymond. As much as Draymond creates this amazing aspect to the game, he also takes away from it. His trash talking, his constant, getting in players' faces, getting technicals, what he gives, he takes. And I've very rarely seen a game where JWill has taken more than he's given. I think there was one game he shot 1 for 6 or something like that from threes, and he only picked up 3 charges.
Well, this last game he shot 1 for 7, but he was able to hit the one that mattered, take a charge, play great defense, and like I said, 8-8-8.
Yeah, he's still doing things, man. To me, that's why it's important when players and people used to say going to the G League is an automatic, you're done for your career. I love what the Thunder have made it. It's like, no, you go to the G League to tone in your skills. Trey, man, go. Doesn't matter who you are, go. Why? Because if you're using the G League to help players out and help learn the same system that you're teaching up there just to get better in that system and to play against less, competition to help you become more effective, how does that help you? It helps you because it's all about a mental aspect of it. If you know you can be successful doing it, right, you have a better chance of going into the NBA and being successful doing it. If you're questioning yourself because you've been shut down by some of the best defenders in the world, you're not going to be out and be more effective. So the G League is incredibly important, especially when this team is coming out like they are. And there's going to be years, Mark, that we might not see our first round draft pick for a couple of years. I'm serious, guys. We might get a top 10 pick. We might not even see that guy play in the game for 2 years. And then also when he comes and plays in the game, he's fucking dominating. I've been saying this for so many years that the NBA is in dire need of a good farm system like the Major League Baseball has. They are in dire need of it because there's too many first-round draft picks that are not making it. There's too many second-round draft picks that are not making it. And now there's almost more chance that you make it as a second-round draft pick than a first-round or even an undrafted player. I guarantee if you put the undrafted and the second-round picks together, it would almost come out to be almost equal to the amount of playing time the first-round picks you're getting. And to me, that's just telling me that people are going out of their ways to try to pick up what they consider talent to be better than other things. Future talent, right? Well, if you were willing to go bet on somebody with future talent, then do what we did with Ousmane Dieng. Bring him into the system. Let him play out a year in G League. Let him take his time. Let him work through injuries, whatever it needs to do, and then bring him to the NBA when he's more ready. There shouldn't be these guys that were going out and saying, oh, yeah, in 3 years, this player is going to be dominant. Well, guess what they're not going to do? Dominate the NBA, ever, if that's what you're saying. Because if they're not good enough to be in the NBA and you're drafting them saying in 3 years they're going to be, good, that's a G League person. Send them to your G League until they are ready. And that's what the Thunder are starting to do that I get excited about.
So JWill had, lots of stuff going for him. Those rebounds, fighting against Valanciunas, like his defensive effort, taking the charges. That would be the highlight to me, okay? Then you think about his scoring. He had a finger roll that people were comparing to Dr. J, maybe George Gervin. He had a hook shot that people were comparing to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, maybe Magic Johnson's imitation of Jabbar, right? Like, now, he only had 8 points, but he hit a 3, so I'm guessing he hit a free throw also. Now, that's pretty eventful, 8 points. But I'm guessing that what really gets you excited about JWill's game is that passing.
Yeah, it's his vision. It's the idea that he has that vision. I don't want to say it's as good as Josh, just because I don't think there's any player in the league that is as good as Josh. But if you think about the way that he sees the court, I would definitely put him in the same category as Joker, as passing. And he's a fucking freshman, bro. He's a first-year rookie. And I'm already putting him in the elite passing category in the NBA as far as big men. I said this, and I'll say it 100 times, is that if there was a redraft tomorrow, he would go in the lottery pick. He'd be a lottery pick. Without question. This is not me just trying to be nice to him. This is me being real about him. He is one of those players. He is would have been a lottery pick if he stayed one more year in college. Because guarantee if he breaks the charge record, which he would have done this last year, and helped Arkansas to a Final Four, probably, people would have seen what he's really capable of, and he would have been a lottery pick. And this is an unknown draft. This is a very questionable draft when it comes to 5 through 20. And that's why, to me, I look at somebody like JWill and I'm like, we scored with him. Not just that, but I this is one of those things that if Chet never got injured, we don't see the impact that JWill would have had for another year. Because I think JWill and Ousmane Dieng would have stayed in the G League the entire year. Never, maybe once in a while poking their head up for a game or two. But that's it. I think that's what was the original goal. And I think the original goal was also J-Dub coming off the bench. I think J-Dub was going to be that sixth man of the future. But now I'm looking at this, and guys, everybody that's ooh, we should be starting JWill and Chet next to each other. No. Gotta stop thinking about another big body out there. There's one big body on this Oklahoma City Thunder team, and that's Chet. And that's Chet because he can guard 1 through 5. Okay? Second big guy that we're going to have out there is somebody that we've been watching him play multiple different players on defense, whether it's Kawhi, it doesn't matter. And that would be J-Dub as playing that forward position of sorts. That is the way it's going to be. Then you got your small forward, right? Dort. And then you got your 2 guards, Giddey and people are like, whoa. Listen, it's positionless basketball. I'm only putting forward guards and that so people will understand. But the reality is that there's going to be no positions because it's all switching. It's all a zone defense. It's a different NBA, guys. So we're not sitting here and saying, oh, yeah, this player and this player and this player. No. It's going to be the starting 5, and J-Dub is going to be starting at the other quote-unquote forward position, even though he'll be a guard. Because he creates such a massive mismatch on when he's on offense to any forward that be playing him. And on defense, he can hold his own. I'm telling you, J-Dub with an extra 15 pounds next year, which he will have from working out, he'll be as big as most of the power forwards and small forwards in the league at 6'6", 230, 215. Because he has that body frame that can hold that. Or 220, 250, 230, whatever.
I don't know, man. I think JWill is making a serious case to have to be considered as a starter.
So
which
then
means
who are you going to pull off the bench?
Then you're talking about like 6 starters. And that's going to be up to Coach Daigneault to figure out. But I feel like if you could figure out a balance where you have like, say, like, I don't know, like 7 guys, say 6 or 7 guys that started 50 games minimum each. Like, could you pull that off? Like, I know you could do it with 6. Like, so
if you had a rotation that was all about, your rotation was all about teams that you're playing, and everybody knew that,
right?
Then yeah, you could pull off 7
I think
starters.
You might have to do that with a player as skilled as JWill, because
then I think this is what
you want. Like, because remember when like Team USA 18 and under, we saw Chet playing with Kenny Lofton Jr. You want Chet with someone like JWill. I really think so.
I agree with you, but my point is that who are you going to put on the bench then? Dort doesn't belong on the bench.
He doesn't belong on the bench, and that's why I think maybe, like you're saying, you match up, you put it in.
Okay, all right.
It's a new concept where you don't have a set 5.
So then let's just think this through. All right. So we've got 6 starters in the course of a year. Each of the 6 starters take a 10-game break, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your goal is to 12 games. Your goal is to play 70 games in a year. Then that's 100% doable, bro.
Right.
Because then you're rotating who's taking off a day between, 6 or 7 guys. And in that case, then yes, then you could have a rotation of starters like that. And then at the end of the season, you hone down who you want to be as your starters.
Odds are somebody's going to be out of that 6. It's unlikely, even if you
think about it. How many times are you going to have an entire healthy guys, your starting 5 going to be healthy all year round? It never happens. No. So, like, think about it. If Dort went out this last year, like he did this last year, and went out for 10 games,
mm-hmm.
and then Dort has to come back in and earn a spot again. I mean, that's just what's going to happen. Or whether it's J-Dub or Josh Giddey or whatever, it's just this time period that they'll have to come back in the game.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's guys that coach will be like, the second he's healthy, he's starting again. But then there's other guys that it's like, no, we want to take it slow with them.
Like, legitimately, I'm concerned about not having JWill in the game. Like, I don't think Chet will automatically be better than JWill, because Chet can bring things like blocking shots, but JWill already draws charges. Chet can bring things like stretching the court with a 3, but so can JWill. So I just feel like JWill has moved into the spot where we have to consider him as a potential someone who kind of like creates a starting lineup that's in flux, and that might actually be the best thing going forward, to kind of like let players have some nights off. I don't know if that's really what a guy like Lou Dort wants, but in the end, like him and J-Dub and it's going to be interesting. So we could talk about this for a while, and we should keep talking about it. Go ahead.
But just think about it. Every 10 games, it's what? 10. You're going to give every 10 games, you're going to give a player off a game, right? Every 8 games, you're going to give a player off, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And if you keep that rotation off, like it doesn't look bad to do that, I think, to me, I'm looking at it and people are like, why would Coach D only want to play guys 70 games? Well, because if you play guys 70 games in the course of, let's just say, 10 years, you're saving a guy 120 games, which is a season and a half in 10 years. Why is that important? Well, when young players are getting to that 10 year and everybody's looking at them saying, well, that's 10 years, but they have a light 10 years. That makes a big difference on the contract size that you get. And that 10-year contract is way bigger than anything else. And that's what's important, is that when you're looking at it and saying a 10-year career for a young guy and they're only, playing 70 games a year, which is, 120 games short of full amount for the course of 10 years, it's huge for these young players, bro. Huge.
Mm-hmm.